What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Ford File. And today's case file is previewing the NBA Conference Finals. And I already know that Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals has already been played. The Suns are up 1-0. And probably by the time this video goes up, Game 2 probably would be played as well. But okay, my last video, my recovery review, you should go watch that, by the way, if you haven't. It took forever to get uploaded. Long story, but anyway, let's get into this. Alright, we'll start with the Western Conference Finals, since they've already started. Between the 2nd seed Phoenix Suns and the 4th seed Los Angeles Clippers. And how they got here, the Suns beat the defending champion Lakers in round 1. Bye-bye LeBron. They beat the Nuggets in a sweep. And the Clippers got past the Mavs in 7 games. And they took down the top-seeded Jazz in 6. And both those series, they went down 0-2 and came back to win it. So it really shows that they're a really resilient team, especially the series against the Jazz when they were without Kawhi Leonard for Game 5 and Game 6, which they both won. But does that mean that the Clippers are better without Kawhi? Okay, I'm not Skip Bayless. We'll get into that later. But alright, some history. Suns are in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2010, where they lost to the eventual champion Lakers. And the Clippers, they just lost their Conference Finals V card, finally. They're in the first ever Conference Finals for the first time ever in their franchise history. And yeah, the Clippers, throughout their history, they've only really been a good franchise recently. I mean, a few spots here and there, but it's really just more recent that they've actually been a good franchise. And they've had some chances to get to the conference finals before, but I mean, what can you say? They just blew it. The Suns, they haven't been to the finals since '93, where they lost to the Bulls. And of course, the Clippers haven't been to the conference finals, so they've obviously never been to the NBA finals. All right. We'll go and talk about Game 1. Okay, Chris Paul didn't play. Neither did Kawhi Leonard. Devin Booker, he had an insane game. Dropped a 40-point triple-double. 40 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. And, that's why I think the Suns won't have that much trouble without Chris Paul. I mean, obviously, they're going to miss him for as long as he's gone, but Devin Booker will be able to carry most of the load. And as for Chris Paul being in the COVID protocol, that is so stupid. These NBA athletes are one of the least susceptible groups to COVID. Anyway, I better stop before I get banned for wrong think. But anyway, and so Chris Paul didn't play in Game 1, and he's not going to play in Game 2 either. And Kawhi, he also didn't play Game 1, won't play in Game 2 either. And we'll get into Kawhi in a second. And more about Game 1, DeAndre Ayton had a great game, 20 points, 9 rebounds. And for the Clippers, Playoff P had 34 points. And he's been really stepping up in Kawhi's absence. And I think he plays better when he's the number 1 on a team. That doesn't mean the Clippers are better without Kawhi. I just think Paul George himself plays better when he's the number 1 of a team. Anyway. And then as for Reggie Jackson, he also stepped up, 24 points and 6 rebounds and 4 assists. And all right, let's get into the questions I have about this series. So DeAndre Ayton, he had a pretty solid series against the Lakers and the Nuggets, where they had two of the best big men in the league, and Anthony Davis and reigning MVP Nikola Jokic. And now he's going up against DeMarcus Cousins and Zubac. And they're not that as athletic as him. And I think they might have a tough time guarding him. And that proved to be true in Game 1. We'll see if the Clippers can adjust. But I think he's going to be a problem this whole series for the Clippers. And they need to find a way to slow him down if they want to win. And pause for Paul George, he needs some help from his teammates. Terrence Mann, after having 39 points in Game 6 against the Jazz, he only had 9 in Game 1. Paul George's teammates need to step up. And the Suns need some defense from Jay Crowder and Michael Bridges against Paul George, and especially against Kawhi, if and when he comes back. And speaking of Kawhi, when is Kawhi going to come back? Game 3? Game 4? At all? That's probably the biggest question I have about this series, because I think Chris Paul is probably going to be available for Game 3, but we still don't know about Kawhi. And I think if for the Clippers to have a chance to win this series, Kawhi is going to have to play at some point. And I think that's why it's crucial for the Clippers to win Game 2, so that it gives them some breathing room for Kawhi's return. Because they don't want to be down 0-2 against the Suns team and Kawhi not be ready to play Game 3, where they could go down 0-3. And then they're probably not going to win the series after that. So they really need to win Game 2, I think. And as for the coaching staff, the coaching for each team, Monty Williams for the Suns, he's done a really great job this season turning this Suns franchise around after a decade of being pretty bad. And Chris Paul deserves credit for bringing the winning culture too, but Monty Williams definitely has done a great job. And as for Clippers coach Tyronn Lue, I think he's a pretty decent coach, but I think he's had the luxury of being able to coach LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, and then now Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So I think overall he's done pretty solid, pretty solid job as coach of the Clippers, but I think Monty Williams is a better coach. So the Suns have the advantage there. All right, here's my prediction for the series. Really, most of it depends on if Kawhi Leonard comes back and if he does win. I think if he doesn't come back at all, this series could be over pretty quick. It probably might be Suns in 5, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to come back. But it all depends on when he comes back, Game 3, Game 4, and what the series is like. Are they down 0-2? Is it tied 1-1? Yeah. All right, a lot of hypotheticals here. I'll get my official prediction. I think Kawhi will come back in the series, and Chris Paul obviously will as well. And this series is going to go down to the very last game. And I think the Suns are going to win it in 7. Yep. That's my prediction for the Western Conference Finals. Let's get into the East Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals is between the 3rd seed Milwaukee Bucks and the 5 seed Atlanta Hawks. And the Bucks, they got here by sweeping the defending Eastern champs, Miami Heat, and then having a grueling series against the Nets, which they barely got past, thanks to Kevin Durant's foot being an inch too long. but they did. I'm not saying they didn't earn it. They did earn it. They do belong here. And as for the Hawks, they beat the Knicks in 5, and then they upset the top-seeded Sixers in 7. So the Hawks have done really good job these playoffs. And Trae Young has really been stepping up on this big stage. So, props to him. And some history, the Bucks are back in the Eastern Conference Finals since their really disappointing loss in 2019 to the Raptors, and where they looked like they had control of the series. They went up 2-0 and then lost 4 straight games. And then the Raptors went to the finals and then beat the Warriors. Well, anyway, the Hawks are back in the conference finals since they got swept by the Cavs in 2015. Could they get swept again? We'll get to that. And then the Bucks haven't been to the finals since '74, and the Hawks were still in St. Louis when they last went in 1961. So it's been a really long time for both of these teams. And that's why I think these NBA finals, both the conference finals and the NBA finals, are going to be really interesting, because they're going to include teams who haven't been there a long time or at all. And this is coming from a Warriors fan whose team went to 5 straight finals. So I'm just a fan of basketball overall. So I'm excited for it. And all right, so Giannis, he's here. He has 2 MVPs, and this is his best chance to get to the finals. And he really needs to get to the finals for his legacy, because in the future, the Nets aren't going to be that injured for them to get past. He really needs to get to the finals, because this is his best chance to win a championship this season, and it'll be really big for him and his legacy. He's already a great player. And great players need to step up and get their teams championships, or at least, very least, put them in a great position too. So this is big for Giannis, and he also needs to cut down on his free throw routine, because he's already not that great of a free throw shooter. And with the crowd jeering at him every time he steps to the free throw line and counting and getting free throw violations, the Bucks can't. And it almost cost them a series against the Nets, his mistakes early in the series, and maybe it won't affect him as much this series, but you can't afford to make mistakes when you go up against great teams, and especially they're gonna meet one in the finals if they win. So, and then as for the point guard matchup between Jrue Holiday and Trae Young, Jrue Holiday, great defender. Trae Young, great scorer, and he's very fast-paced, so it'll be interesting to see how Holiday handles it, especially because he didn't play great on offense against the Nets. And now that he has to exert more energy on defense for the fast-paced Hawks and Trae Young, be interesting to see if he can rebound and get his offense back on track. So, and as for the coaches, Mike Budenholzer for the Bucks, he's a pretty solid coach overall, but he's made a lot of mistakes, and he's really been up and down, especially throughout these playoffs. And I think if they lose this series, I think he might lose his job, because this is the best chance to get to the finals, and if they blow it again, I think he loses his job, or at least has a very good chance of him losing his job. So, and as for the Hawks, Nate McMillan has done a really great job turning the Hawks season around after taking over mid-season, and he's done an amazing job. That's really all you can say, but he's done a great job. And all right, so the Bucks have the advantage in almost every single aspect, from experience to Giannis to home court. It's hard to bet against the Bucks in this series, and it'll be really disappointing if they lose this series. So, and as for the Hawks, they are good, but The Bucks aren't the Sixers. They don't have Ben Simmons. So, and that's why my prediction is Bucks in 5. Because I think Trae Young has enough magic to get Hawks a game, but that's it. Bucks in 5. Alright, so my prediction for the NBA Finals this year is Phoenix Suns versus Milwaukee Bucks. After the Suns win in 7 against the Clippers, and the Bucks win in 5 against the Hawks. So, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button. Comment if you agree with my predictions. Do you disagree? Do you think the Hawks are going to go to the finals? You're crazy. But, I mean, maybe it could happen, but I think you're crazy if you think that. But make sure to smash that like button, comment, and subscribe for more. And share this video. Get the conversation going. And spread this channel. And we can call this case closed.
It's a Booker banana!